the business summit at DrupalCon was the last time I did this talk. So, so I was mostly speaking to business owners of various Drupal agencies. So, anyways, but before we go there, let me get my Windows all ready. Sorry. There we go. So I'm James Sansbury. I met most of you, but a few of you I hadn't met. So, a quick background. I got started doing Drupal development 14 years ago. That was Drupal 4.5 or something like that. Prior to that, I was studying music, got a music degree, and started building websites for bands that I was working with. And turned out I was making better websites than I was making music, I believe. Or I was at least able to make more money making websites than I was making music. But then about 8 years ago, I got hired at Lullabot as a trainer, and then that moved into Drupal developer, and then an architect role, and now for the past 6 years, I've been a development manager at Lullabot. And as a development manager, I do a lot of hiring. So I try to hire, at Lullabot actually, we don't do a lot of hiring, but part of my role is working with our developers, and then when we need new developers, hiring those developers. So, and finding people that continue to bring Lullabot's values to the work that we do. But maybe you guys don't know who Lullabot is. We're a strategy, design, and Drupal development shop. And one of the first Drupal companies out there, actually. So way back in the day when Drupal was first getting formed, we were one of the first Drupal consulting companies out there. So that was, I don't even know how many years ago, but 11 years, 12 years ago. And one interesting thing about Lullabot that's important for this conversation is that Lullabot is completely distributed. We have no central office. Even our CEO and president, they work from home. Everyone works from home. So that may be very different from the organizations that you guys work at. So things that work for us might not work for you, and vice versa. Things that work for you might not work for us because of that. So yeah, we're going to talk about starting off. How does Lullabot find our talent, and then also from there, how do we then keep people around? Because we've had a very good track record of employee retention. So, but of course we don't have all the answers. So it's going to be a dialogue. If you guys this can be very interactive. So please chime in if you guys have questions in the middle. Feel free to interrupt me. So as far as hiring, our first place to look is asking our current employees. If you guys if you all in your companies don't have other people already in the Drupal community, this may not be as easy. But for us, the first place for us to look is our existing Drupal developers, our front-end developers, asking them, who do you know in the community that's maybe looking for a job, or just who do you think, who have you worked with? And then we give a referral for anyone that, if we end up hiring someone that they referred to us. So, Drupal Slack is another place that we look. And I've actually had really good luck with this. I don't know if any of you guys are on the Drupal Slack, but there's a jobs channel, there's a jobs remote channel, and both of those channels are for putting your job post in. One thing to note about the Drupal Slack is because it's a free Slack, whatever you post in there will go away after a week or something like that. So you can plop back in there a week later and post it again. It seems like people don't mind that. So, and then there's the looking for work channel, which is people saying I'm available for work. So not probably a place to post your job, but a place to look for seeing if anyone's in there saying, I'm in this area and I'm looking for work, that sort of a thing. So. These are some of the places that we post our job postings. So jobs.drupal.org, which I believe somehow, it used to be that you could, and maybe you still can, but we used to pay the weekly drop. Are you guys familiar with the weekly drop? It's a weekly newsletter, if you're not, that just has like Drupal articles and stuff like that. And so Drupal developers often subscribe to it, and so you can put your job post in there. And it used to be you had to contact them directly, but I believe now they're somehow linked up with jobs.drupal.org. Does anyone else know if that's true or not?
I think they've got a partnership.
Okay, yeah. I haven't looked into that again, but I've also had some success kind of, I don't know, lurking on, I always feel dirty after being on LinkedIn, like I have to wash my hands or something, but there's the Drupal group in LinkedIn, and you can kind of scroll through that and find people that are looking for work in there as well. So, any places you guys use to post job postings that you've had luck with?
Like a remote jobs one too?
Yes, these are all non-specific to remote, but weworkremotely.com is one that we've used, and work from home, or wfh.io and remoteok.io are the remote ones that we've posted to. But are you familiar with some other ones?
Yeah, well, I just want to say, like, some of these I feel like we have really bad luck with. Like Indeed, Glassdoor specifically, and the remote jobs one as well. Like, to me, those are kind of, you know,
you get a bunch of junk.
The type of stuff we get is generally like they live somewhere else and they can't legally work in the U.S. and for us that's a problem. But yeah, CodePen though, and like Shop Talk Show / CSS Tricks or whatever else it is, like I've had the best luck with that, I think.
Okay.
Front end specific stuff.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of luck with Stack Overflow.
Oh, cool.
Their job.
We haven't tried that yet because it's
phenomenal.
Good.
How much does that one cost?
It's a little pricey.
Yeah, that's what I remember it being, a little more on the expensive
I
side.
think the quality is better.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We'll have to give that a shot.
I can see issues with like with the job posting specifically through Glassdoor, but like in companies I've been with in the past where they promote like actual like transparency on Glassdoor though.
Okay.
Even if you see the job posting somewhere else, people will still look you up your company on Glassdoor.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah,
that kind of transparency on there is really promising on the culture side of it.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Any other thoughts on that one?
Just, I'm guessing you'll get into it, but with casting a wide net, you know, with a small agency with very limited resources for going through hiring, sorting
So
through
get
the craft. So
yeah, I don't have a slide that dives into that, but So you and I were talking about Jazz HR, which is an applicant tracking system. Are you guys using?
Yeah, we use Jazz as well.
Okay. So in there, the nice thing is you can set up your questionnaire and set required questions that they have to respond to, and then it'll immediately, essentially, behind the scenes, reject that candidate automatically based on their answer to certain questions. So, of course, you know, not everybody's going to be honest if they tell you. Are you legally allowed to work in the United States? Yes, even though then you find out later.
Yeah.
Well, what's great is in the job posting you have like must be legally required to work in the United States, and they still put no on the application. So you're like, well, is there I guess one thing that we're having a more difficult time hiring is like more digital strategist roles. I'm not sure if you have any familiarity with that, but more than welcome recommendations there because the normal, I'm more familiar with the dev side of it, so to me, I kind of know where to look for that, but digital strategist role it seems so new to begin with, and it's been really tough just to find people that are, interested, qualified, or.
Yeah, we haven't hired yet for that role. There are Lullabots who've kind of moved in that role from whether it be an architect or a developer role in the past. But we are starting to look at that, and I think where we're going to head is starting with firms that are already doing it, and just at first hiring, maybe even if it's like a freelancer or something that we know already in the community. But yeah,
a good place might be in the affiliate marketing circles, because people who are really good at digital strategy usually dabble in affiliate marketing.
Nice.
That's what I do for them. So.
yeah, cool. Thanks, Mike. I don't feel like actually Lullabot did a good job at this in our most recent job post, but make your job post compelling is the point of this slide. And so talk about what you're working on, why it's exciting to you. Talk about your company values and how that maps to the work that you're doing. And if you aren't excited about your work, you're going to have a hard time finding someone else to get excited about it. So talk about your job post from that. Find whatever that is for yourself, and try to communicate that in your job post. How does your company create order out of chaos, or in what ways does your company make the world a better place? What values does your company use to support that? Communicate from that place in your job post, and I think you'll find you connect with people more than just saying, we need someone with 10 years, blah, 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 and this degree, and we're looking for this, just the facts. It can just seem like, okay, well, that's really dry. So just creating a little bit of a story in there. So, and like I said, to start, I don't feel like we've got an open job post right now, and I got some feedback recently on it, and I went back and read it, and I was like, yeah, I need to take my own advice here. So, this one might be a little controversial. I feel like if I had this slide up in front of some of my peers at Lullabot, they might argue with me on this, but don't immediately assume that the most qualified person is the best person for the job. So, what do I mean by that? Do some digging to see more if the candidate's values align with your company's values. So when I say don't hire the best, I mean don't immediately hire the person with the most experience or the best education. So one of the questions in an interview that I'll ask is, anger can be a window into what we value. So what's something that got you angry recently at work? And having that conversation can be really enlightening about, like, wow, this person really values a lot of the same things that we value. And thinking about anger isn't always a bad thing. It can reveal what we care about, and when the things that we care about are threatened. And then also, I really like that question too, because it honors our humanity, or I don't know how you would put that, but anyways. So kind of related to that, that just caring for the individual person kind of segues into the next section, which is being honest with your candidates. So one thing that we like to do at Lullabot is be very open about the process and where the candidates are at in the process. So we tell, when we're talking with a candidate, we tell them where we're at right now, what's coming up next. Mike Herschel probably didn't get that good experience, but nowadays I feel like we're improving. How long have you been at Lullabot, Mike?
Over 4 years now.
Okay.
So how long was his rant when you asked him what makes him angry?
I didn't get to interview Herschel actually, so
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have hired me.
I don't know that you got asked that question, but maybe.
I don't know.
So, so being honest, being open about where they are in the process, encouraging them to get in touch with you if they have any questions throughout the process. I like to tell people, I think I'll get back with you beginning of next week. If that doesn't happen, reach out to me because a lot can be going on, so don't feel bad about that. So. The other thing that I like to do is, even if at that point a specific candidate isn't a good fit, maybe they don't quite have the experience you need, I like to keep in touch with people. So what we call this at Lullabot is our army of awesome. So we have we're using Jazz HR, the applicant tracking system. We have like a category that we can dump resumes and stuff that we're like, these are people that we want to keep in touch with. And I'll check in, like a year or 6 months or something, and just, even if we're not hiring at that point, just to see how the person's doing, seeing if they're looking around or, because sometimes we have a lot of people that apply that, well, you're on the right track. You're just not quite there yet as far as what Lullabot needs, So just a few more years experience maybe, and then we'll have a conversation and it might work out, so. Any of you guys doing this as well? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot along the lines of like, we're not hiring right now, but you look promising and
Yes.
I'll reach out in a few months.
Yeah?
Just to see what your situation is. 'Cause two people that I'm keeping an eye on, like they look promising, but we don't have anything right now, but I kind of let them know that to begin with. And
Yeah.
hey, we don't have anything right now, but our workload could change quickly. We might have to scale up because it has in the past. I'll reach out in a few months to see what your situation is. Just that way, if they're trying to hold out for this position, that maybe there'd be better, letting them know they'd be better off to take another one.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Do you actually like create a schedule? And
No, I should though. That would be a good idea. But I would say it's probably more than a year that it'll go. But it might be a DrupalCon or something. I'll see them and just check in and see how they're doing. But just creating that relationship. So keeping those touch points, I think, is good. The next one might be more applicable to our work where we are in client services, but sometimes we can't find the people we need on the timeline that we need, and in those moments we have what we call friend competitors. So 4 Kitchens, Chromatic, Tag One, we've got some companies that sometimes they refer us work, sometimes we refer them work, and we try to have it be under the Lullabot umbrella, but we hire, we'll use one of their developers to fill in a gap where we can't find someone. I'm not sure that really applies if you're not in a Drupal services business as much, but maybe still looking out there, are there vendors that we could get a good rate for the next 6 months just to fill in these gaps and maybe even help us hire someone. So, because we've done that, Lullabot's done that for some of our clients. They've hired us to come in and do consulting and strategy work, and then they've also solicited our help in helping them hire their team. So, cool. Switching gears. So now, how do we keep our employees happy and keep them around? So now that we've hired our employee, keeping them happy, and I ended up asking around at Lullabot prior to this presentation, what keeps some of our Lullabots sticking around. And several people said this to me, that Lullabot treats them like an adult, and they really appreciate that. So for some of the things, for example, that I said is PTO. So we don't have unlimited PTO at Lullabot. I'm not sure if any of the company, if you guys have heard of that thing. At Lullabot, we feel like that's worse in some ways because it creates this weird dynamic where there are some people that feel bad taking time off and other people are abusing it, and there's just like this weird dynamic that gets created. But instead, we provide a fixed PTO amount, but then tell people, hey, if you need to take the afternoon off and go run an errand or whatever, like just let your team know. And we call that it's flex time. Like you set your own schedule. We trust you. We didn't hire you and expect that you needed to be babysat during the day. So if you need to go do something in the afternoon, just as long as you're communicating and open about it, then do what you got to do. So another thing we do is we give our employees budgets to manage their own equipment. So we use a card called a PEX card. Any of you guys familiar with the PEX card? It's basically like a check card, and it's pre-tax dollars that go in every month to a check card. So you get X dollars a month every month, and people can save up for a computer if they want. They can buy the specific software that they want, and that's one less thing that we need to manage. But it also kind of ties into this, like trusting them to get the equipment and the software and empowering them to be able to do that. So,
I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
So if the employee leaves, at that point, do they purchase their machines or software back, or how's that?
They do for $1. That's how we've set it up. So, because technically, as far as the United States IRS tax stuff, we own Lullabot. The company owns the devices. So, in order to get around that, we ask the employee to buy their equipment back for $1. So,
maybe you're small enough to maybe not have this problem. You're pretty much a Mac shop, right? So
you guys
Mac
are?
OS and all that, yeah. So I'm sure we have some developers that would prefer to be on something else, and in all likelihood, they're smart enough to figure out something else. But just the ability to manage kind of like one workflow and one set of tools and scale that across employees to us is. So it's more valuable to kind of have them all in the same systems and such. So I don't know if you're like, okay, you can buy any equipment you want, but
but it's got to be a MacBook Pro 2017. You can use whatever software you'd like as long as it's PHP Storm. No, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think it works for Lullabot, and it might not work for every company out there because of whatever the sort of work you're doing and how standardized you need to be with that. So
You say it works in the sense that you don't impose restriction or anything?
we don't. So we've got some, I would say the majority are on Mac, but a big group are on Ubuntu or Debian, or and then a few on Windows. What's that?
Windows subsystem for Linux.
Yeah,
IDSM?
I guess so. Is that or other way around? I don't know. Apparently.
I think the hard part about that, though, is that if people are using things that other people are not using, and there isn't wide adoption for it, and they don't have really anybody else to bounce ideas off of. But if they want to take that risk themselves, then that's fine. Like for me, at least, it's like, okay, if you're really comfortable doing this, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're deciding that that's how you want to set it up, then there's a certain comfort level that you should have going into it anyway.
Right.
And you should assume responsibility for
I think so far that's worked out well, but I could definitely see, hiring some people that maybe have less technical skills that are like, yeah, I'm totally going to run this in Windows. I'm like, Node is broken.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's kind
kind of like an expectation that, hey, you can get it up and running using your own stack.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can't do that, then maybe use something.
Yeah, then maybe you should
Yeah.
maybe consider. Yeah.
There's also, I mean, is the agency paying for that time? So I run Linux, and I spend way too much time sticking with stuff, right? I just recently switched to MacBook Pro, but I'm like, I'm gonna do it, right? But I don't charge that time to Kalamuna, you know? So it's like, it's a personal choice thing. I don't have kids, so you know, so I guess I can waste my time. But so it'd be like, to me, it's like you know, if someone's doing their own thing, are they and they have problems with it? Are they charging that time to the agency or not?
I think that kind of depends on where the problems originate from.
Yeah.
Like when I'm setting up my local, I charge, you know, an hour or two
Yeah, there's a standard
for that billable. But
Yeah.
if like, for example, I don't know, my local gets fried and it has nothing to do with the you know, the site.
Right.
I don't think it's very fair to charge the client for
Right.
that, you know.
Right.
But that being said, if it's like a very complicated thing, and you know, say it's a complicated site with like super complicated dependencies, you have to edit all these config files, and it's just like, and there's no documentation for it, and you have to, and it takes like 6 hours to do that. Well, then yeah,
Yeah.
you know, we'll charge you for that, and then maybe we'll write some documentation.
Yeah.
I think part of it would come down to like the platform is one level of it, but then like what kind of workflow or local environment do you expect to run as well? Like do you impose like here we've got a vagrant stack, like this, all of our sites are based on this vagrant stack. So as long as you can run vagrant, then everything's going to run in VM after that. So it doesn't matter all that much the platform that's running under it.
It's getting better for sure, but it still can be challenging.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And one caveat to this is, I will say, is that treating your employees like adults doesn't mean you don't challenge them. And I think sometimes that there's a fine line there. And I think it means trusting them and also letting them challenge you and giving them what they need to kick ass, along with the freedom to do it in their own way. But of course, as we were saying before, maybe that depends on the agency or the company and making sure that's the right fit. Where on that autonomy versus standardization line you are. So
Can I ask a dumb question? So
no, but you may ask a question.
You are not allowed to ask. What happens, you know, in your mind when? Because to me, I think you say treat your employees like adults, but you're also, I think, expecting them to be adults.
Yes.
Because it's a two-way street. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, just about setting the stage and giving it, you know, in one direction and not expecting it in the other. So how do you feel when that, you know, gets off kilter?
When you have an employee that maybe isn't acting like an adult, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or you know, maybe not honoring everything that you would like them
Yeah.
to do, and you've given them a lot of trust, and you've can you cover some of that?
Yeah, I would say in those scenarios, because it sometimes that can happen, and it's happened at Lullabot before, and some of it can come back to communication, just making sure expectations are clearly set. And what we'll do in those instances when it gets really bad is going through a PIP, a performance improvement plan, and saying, here's clear, like here are the issues that we're having, whether it's focus, productivity, and like here are the things that we're looking at, and we're gonna meet, we're gonna talk about this once, twice a week, however often it needs to take, and talk through this issue and monitor this. And it's basically that like, hey, this is serious sort of a conversation, so that it's not a surprise to them, like, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to let you go. Like, this isn't working out. Like, we can't sacrifice the good of the whole for the good of the one. Like, we can't just continue to invest, like, you know, all the management energy that we have on this situation. So I don't, and that has worked at Lullabot. We've actually had those happen. And in other companies, saying a PIP or a PIP, that's code word for we're about to fire you and we've got to go through this paperwork. But that's not how we do it at Lullabot. We don't want it ever to be a surprise if someone needs to be laid off. Like, we're going to have a conversation. I mean, of course, there are some scenarios where it's just, this was completely unacceptable and it's over, I'm sorry. Like, there are those sorts of scenarios. Thankfully, I can only think of one off the top of my head, and it was a long time ago where we had to do that. But you know, if your developer is cursing out your client, it's like, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. Like,
That's when you ask the anger question.
What's that?
No, sorry, you asked the anger question. And
Oh yeah, exactly.
you
You can get angry about this, but come and talk to another Lullabot about it. Don't talk to the client about it and chew them out and scream at them.
I like your point though. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt.
that's right.
Like about the PIPs not, like I personally treat them very seriously,
Yeah.
and I try to use it as a last resort, but it's never something to me that I'm like, it's a done deal. Like I never have that philosophy. I mean, my number one thing is always trying to like, what can we do to get back to having something that works for both of us?
Yeah.
And that's always been my focus, and I like the total, but it's also hard to do well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to add on to that, what I've been trying to do, I manage a relatively small team, and I'm Zach, I work in media here.
Okay.
I manage the front end team. We're relatively small, so I can have one-on-ones with my team like every other week. And if something has come up throughout the week, I don't have to pull that person to the side unless it really warrants it. I can just, our normal one-on-ones, can talk about it then, because I don't ever want there to be a surprise. Because we have annual reviews as well,
Yeah.
for peers review you every year. And our goal is that there's never any surprises going into your annual review. Like, you should know where you need to improve. Like, this shouldn't come out of the blue, right? Like, if you need to work on your soft skills or something like that, like, you should already be doing that. Management should have let you know early on, and then the PIP is kind of like the things just, we've let you know lots of times, things haven't been improved, let's team you up with some people to try to get you to improve.
I like to refer to it almost as the pattern-based behaviors, right? Like when you see more than something happening once, something happening twice, you know, it's like, it's keeps coming up, and it's like, okay, now I think we need to address this. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. It's a great question though, and like, I think there's the getting back to the point that I was saying before about just making sure that, like, yes, we're treating them like adults, but it's also important to challenge and not just be like, oh yeah, do it however you want to do it. And because I think, but that's a two-way street too. Like, not only challenging, but accepting challenges from your employees. So next, I would say Lullabot, I feel like we do a really great job of this, is communicating openly within the company. So be transparent with your employees. This will show that you trust them, and they will in turn be more transparent with you, and which in turn allows you to trust them even more. So this doesn't mean that you talk about everything. You can't, of course, you can't talk about the fact that Tom Smikowski got fired because of his people skills. But, you know, push the boundary of what you share. So talk about the company finances. Talk about your vision for the project or your company, and talk about what success means. This is a Jack Stack quote that I like a lot. When people lack facts, they will fill the void with fiction. So don't just talk about it once. Continue to talk about these things. Communication is a leaky bucket, so you have to keep pouring into it. Another thing that we try to do at Lullabot is keep it fun. You know, not just all work and everything's always serious all the time. So this is another thing that some of the Lullabots that I asked mentioned that really keeps them around, is that we like to have a good time together. So making sure you have set aside time to celebrate your successes. Don't just move immediately from this project to, okay, now we're over here. It's like, sometimes you have to like really look back and like stare at the work that you did. You're like, look at this, isn't this amazing what we did together?
Mm-hmm.
So,
So how did you do that if everybody's remote?
great
It's hard to
question.
it's hard to have a celebration, go out to lunch if everybody
Yes,
is remote.
yeah. So we do a monthly call called a show and tell that is a screen share, and people can get on there and talk about what they've worked on, or if we just finished up a project, someone may get on there and do a demo of like some really cool functionality that was built in there, or maybe it's even from the business side of things for us, like here's how this relationship started, and let's talk about how that then 2 years later turned into this project. So some of that stuff. Does that answer your question? I would say that's, we also we have a team retreat once a year where the whole company gets together, and that's also a good time to celebrate those, celebrate things that we've done throughout the year. So yeah, but it is a little abstract when you're not like standing there looking at a work of art that you collaborated on, literally in space or something.
We've done like on like big launches and stuff like that. We've also like, all hopped on Google Hangouts and just discussed while drinking beers and kind of, you know, it's nice to kind of have that at the end of it. It's like a little bit of closure, and in addition to that, it's just kind of fun to celebrate.
Yeah.
But that's not like a formal thing. That's very informal, but that same kind of happens.
Yeah.
I have a question about something you guys do really well. You have a lot of content. Your employees put a lot of content. Very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I actually knew Harshal through what he was writing before I even met him.
Really?
Nice.
So, is that something that you manage, or is it passion-driven?
We do not manage it. We do create the space for it, though.
Okay.
So when we sell our projects, we sell our developers we book them for 30 hours per week billable on our project, which leaves that 20% time for them to write articles or contribute to Drupal.org, or do some learning that they want to do. Maybe it's taking like a Node.js course or a JavaScript ES6 course or something like that. So.
Yeah, but about, I would say roughly 40% of my hang-ups in Drupal get answered in some way or form on a Lullabot blog.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you. That's cool. But yeah, I think creating the space for that, and then there is a culture, I think, there at Lullabot of just like encouragement of that. But not. I mean, there's several of employees that I have that have never spoken at a conference and never written an article, and I don't give them a hard time about it. It's just they show up for our clients, like they kick ass for our clients, and that's all that we hired them for. So they've got other things that they use their 20% time for. So I forgot to hit next slide. So yeah, I mentioned before some things that Lullabot does to keep things fun is we have the yearly team retreat. We have those show and tells. Sometimes on the show and tells it'll be like Dave Reed with a camera up above his stove, and he's teaching us how to make corn tortillas or something like that. Or Ben Chevet, who's a system administrator at Lullabot, talking about his home network, and like maybe one person that's on the call actually understands what he's saying. But it's cool just having that monthly chat. Every Friday we have a call that we call the Serendipity Call, and we break up into random groups of 5 or 6, and we all hop on a call, and we've got a fun question that's like, have you ever met anyone famous, or what's your favorite vegetable, or what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? It's usually something around food. I don't know why, but one of them was, which emoji would you be? which I thought was fun. If you could be any emoji, we should ask that of the room. Here's some books that I would say Lullabot have been impactful at Lullabot. Radical Candor is one that I've read recently. Have any of you guys read that one? So Radical Candor is by Kim Scott. She has worked for Apple, Google, and she's run her own company for a while. Really good book. Going back to what I was saying before about challenging and also accepting challenge. I really like some of the concepts in that book. So not only challenging your employees, but then encouraging them to challenge you, and creating that environment for us to be radically candid with each other, but not going to the point of being an asshole, and finding that balance. So. Tribal leadership is an old one that I would say early on at Lullabot was pretty impactful, talking about kind of different levels of, I don't really like the word culture, but it talks about company culture a lot, because I feel like culture can kind of be an overloaded term these days, but good concepts in there. The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. So this one talks a lot about openness in your company. So that quote that I read to you before about continuing to talk about the business and everything, so that otherwise the employees fill those things with fiction. So that quote was from this book, Great Game of Business. And I have not read this book, but Seth Brown, our COO, recommended this one, and I would like to read it, but I haven't. Has anyone read that book, Leaders Eat Last? Simon Sinek, he's got like a couple videos that, like TED Talk sort of things that you may have seen. But, any books that you guys have, or talks or anything that have been inspiring to you on this topic?
Great Game of Business.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
The Last Word on Power
The Last Word on Power.
is excellent.
Who's that by? Or do you remember off?
Get the author's name. It's an older book. It talks a lot about people's perspectives,
Okay.
and it's kind of very, very interesting in that regard. And I actually just gave a talk in the last couple of months on technical leadership that hits on a lot of the things that you're covering, so that might be something to check
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I did a lot of research on it before. So.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. I'll have to check that out. Last Word on Power.
I can tweet it to you.
Yeah, okay. That'd be awesome.
It's not as much reading, but one thing that I found really helpful in one of my jobs early on was all the employees took the Myers-Briggs personality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And just like when we would start working with each other, we would share like some of the highlights from it. And that was really focused on, like we pulled some of the stuff on there, really focused on how we work and how we interact most successfully with each other. And we
Was
saw
that-
a lot of benefit out of
Was
it.
that well received? Like, yeah, that's good. I've pondered doing that at Lullabot, but I always worry that people feel like they're being put in a box or something like that.
Yeah.
We,
That's what Boss I had, was trying to put everybody in a box.
Yeah, it's like, let's create nice little categories for people. But I do think that there's a lot that if people personally want to do those and learn from them, but
that's how we handled it. Was we made it like everybody took it, but like sharing it was optional, and you could share different pieces of it. But it was really beneficial just because you would learn about yourself as much as anything else, because it included tips about like, okay, so a person like this learns best like this.
yeah.
And a lot of it was just kind of like, it would resonate with you, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of do. And you could identify with it and
Yeah.
learn to work with yourself as better as much as working with anybody else.
Mm-hmm. That is cool. Anything else? Any other books or?
I've got a book that I've started reading, and so far it's been interesting. It's The Manager's Path, a guide for tech leaders navigating growth and change. I had to look it up because I don't remember what. But it's pretty good. I feel like a lot of people in our industry kind of fall into management, and that's
Mhm.
definitely the case for me.
Yeah, me too.
And then you get there and you're like, well, crap, like now I'm a manager. I was really good at technical stuff. And now I
Yeah, yeah.
manage people. What's
Yeah.
the deal? So, but that's been interesting to me to just kind of maps out a good road path or map or whatever it is. That made a lot of sense.
And what was it called again?
The Manager's Path.
Manager's Path. Cool.
That's the piece I've always struggled with, is I've often felt that, you know, people feel like they have to go into management to be recognized, to be, you know, their next step or whatever in their career. But they get no formal training. It's like throw you into the fire. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No problem. We are out of, unfortunately, I said I was going to go fast through the slides, and I did not go fast, so I apologize. But I had some fun questions that we could have talked through. That let me see if I can back up to them. You guys can ponder these. Whoa.
I would say okay.
Doesn't like that. My window closed. Let's see if I can do back arrow or something.
You consider yourself tech.
Maybe I didn't ponder that one long enough.
So is there an increasing perception that Drupal is declining? How do you think we as Drupal businesses should respond to that? That's an interesting question to ponder. That I doubt we would in the next negative 4 minutes that we have in this session.
We can go real fast. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, and
All
what?
right, next slide. No.
I'd like to add to that, maybe.
I'm going to hit cancel this time and see if it changes. Are your Drupal developers bored or burned out?
Cool.
Have you found ways to alleviate that? Lightning round, what's your answer?
Some of them.
Some of them? Okay, yeah. Sorry,
And yes.
I'm getting the evil eye.
Or some of them. For both.
For agencies, are your rates lowering while salaries are increasing? We're finding this at Lullabot.
Yes.
We've got,
We have to remain competitive, right? Because
yeah.
you can't survive otherwise.
Yeah, our rates aren't lowering. They just went up, but.
That's good.
But yeah, it's definitely feeling the crunch of trying to compete on price and having to be able to sell your value.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm getting kicked out, I think. So I'm gonna hit this red button.